There are three big mistakes you're probably making. The first is you're building the business instead of the team. The second is you're controlling instead of enabling. And the third is you're focused on what instead of on why. Number one, you're building the business instead of the team. A couple called Collins and Porras did a study of 20 visionary companies in their book Built to Last. And in this they were studying companies that have stood the test of time, companies that have, in their words, left an indelible imprint on our world. I love that phrase. And what they wanted to see was, what is it that made the difference between those companies and those that fell by the wayside? They give the example of, imagine that you wanted to tell the people of London the time. A couple of hundred years ago, you could on the one hand employ a time teller, someone who's going to go out with a really loud voice and tell everybody the time on the hour, every hour. Of course there's problems with that. What if you get sick? You know, the weather might be inclement on different days, so perhaps you could employ more time tellers, some that might even go out on the half hour. The alternative is you build a clock, a mechanism, a system that sits up on a tower, tells the time for days, every minute, every hour for centuries to come. Now it's obvious to see which model is going to be the most effective. Now in this example, the clock is the team, the clock is the mechanism. You see, sometimes we have the instinct to just do more of the same, build the business instead of build the team, the mechanism, the system which will enable your business to grow and develop without depending on you. You see, your people are your key to growth. Your people are your key to longevity. And drawing the best out of them is what will make your business grow. It's interesting to note that 43% of Fortune 500 companies were started by an immigrant. Somebody who was looking at the picture with a different background, a different experience, a different perspective. And therefore, they brought something new and innovative to the table. The second mistake is that you're controlling instead of enabling. You're tightening the reins instead of allowing more autonomy. And it's an understandable human response, because as humans, when we feel under threat, when we feel anxious, our tendency is to try and control more, try and pull that back so that there's less risk, less uncertainty. But actually it's counterproductive. Now, Gallup, who have studied staff engagement for years, millions of companies, have identified in the UK, a recent survey, that 10% of the workforce on average is engaged. 65% are disengaged and 25% are actively disengaged, actually pulling people away from your objectives and your aims. The question is, how do we address that? That engagement, you see, unless people are engaged, you're fighting a losing battle. As long as your people don't really want to be there, then no amount of flogging or perks will get you where you want to go. Interestingly, Gallup have also shown in a survey of 1 million companies that 75% of people leave their job because of their direct line manager. See, sometimes a controlling, a bullying, an overly sort of breathing down your neck approach actually is counterproductive. It pushes people away. People don't buy in. People care about what they own. Here's an interesting idea. How could you get people to do a job that involves being on call 24 hours a day, cleaning up feces and vomit, getting no thanks and no pay for it? How do you get that to happen? Answer, you allow them to give birth to their own baby. You see, we do that as parents. We do it without thanks and without pay because it's our baby. We care about it. We birthed it. It's ours. And it's exactly the same with whatever project or initiative you're working on. If your people own it, if they were part of the birthing process, if it was their idea, if they're involved, if they feel like they have ownership and have a say, then they will give over and above the call of duty to make that thing a reality. So it's enabling and allowing more creativity and autonomy, not less. The third mistake is to focus on the what instead of the why. Simon Sinek made this point brilliantly with his golden circle. He said most people can identify and tell you what they do. They can also tell you how they do it, but very few people have clarity about why they're doing it. And the why is what taps into the emotional energy in all of us. I wonder if we were to ask your staff why they do the job they do, whether they would point to something intrinsic to the job or about the purpose of the company, or whether they would point to extrinsic factors like to make money, to get a bigger house, in order to go on holiday. Now the fact is, the extent to which your staff buy into your purpose will affect their emotional connectivity to your outcomes. An interesting study was done to incentivize people to give blood. And what they did is they came up with an idea to pay people for each blood donation. But what they found was that actually blood donation went down. People were less likely to give blood when they were paid to do it. I think this is fascinating, and it reveals something significant about what makes us as human beings tick. You see, we each have an innate desire to contribute to the well-being of others. And when we tap into that desire, actually it produces an emotional wind, a motivation to give of our best, because we believe in what we're doing. We believe in why we're doing it. We're engaged with the purpose rather than simply the task.